The slap was loud. Too loud. It cracked through the busy city plaza like a gunshot, forcing conversations to die mid-sentence. Heads turned. Phones froze in midair. A street performer stopped playing. For one brief moment, the entire crowd stood still, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. A bully had just slapped Steven Seagal, in public, right across the face. The man who did it stood tall, chest out, enjoying the attention. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't scared. In fact, he was smiling, wide and proud, like a man who believed dominance was proven through violence. "You hear that?" The bully laughed, looking around. "That's the sound of you learning your place, old man." A few people gasped. Others instinctively raised their phones higher. This was the kind of moment social media loved, raw, humiliating, cruel. Steven didn't shout, didn't curse, didn't even step back. He slowly turned his head, eyes steady, hand still hanging calmly by his side. No rage, no panic, just a quiet, unsettling calm that didn't match the chaos forming around him. "You okay, sir?" someone whispered from the crowd. The bully rolled his eyes. "Relax." "He's fine, aren't you?" He leaned closer, voice dripping with mockery. "Or are you gonna call the cops now?" Steven said nothing. That silence made people uncomfortable, because it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of control. A woman muttered, "Why isn't he reacting?" Another man replied, "Because men like that don't need to." The bully mistook the calm for weakness. Big mistake. "Yeah, that's what I thought," he said, backing away with a laugh. "All bark in your head, no bite." Steven finally spoke. His voice was low, even, but it carried. "You shouldn't put your hands on people," he said. The bully scoffed. "Or what?" Steven didn't answer. Instead, he slowly reached into his pocket. The crowd leaned in. Was he calling the police, a lawyer, an ambulance? No one knew. What no one in that plaza could imagine, what the bully would soon learn the hard way, was this: that single slap had just crossed a line, and the man standing quietly in front of them wasn't powerless. He was protected at the highest level, because Steven Seagal's son didn't just work for the government. He ran Homeland security. And this moment was about to change everything. It had started like any other afternoon. The city plaza was alive with weekend noise. Vendors shouting over one another, the smell of fried food drifting through the air. Street musicians competing for attention. People moved in every direction, impatient but relaxed, caught up in their own worlds. No one woke up that morning expecting a scene. No one expected humiliation, violence, or consequences. Steven Seagal stood near a small food cart waiting quietly. He wasn't trying to be noticed. He wore simple clothes, nothing expensive, nothing flashy. No designer jacket, no sunglasses, no signs of status. Just a man standing patiently in line, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes calm. He looked like someone who had nothing to prove, and that was exactly why he became a target. Ryan Cole pushed through the crowd like he owned the space. Tall, broad, shouldered, voice already raised before anyone had spoken to him. He had the confidence of a man who had never been told no in his life. The kind of confidence built not on respect, but on intimidation. He glanced at the line, scoffed, and stepped forward, cutting directly in front of Steven. Steven shifted slightly. "Excuse me," he said evenly. "There's a line." Ryan turned slowly, eyes scanning Steven from head to toe, the clothes, the age, the calm expression. He smirked as if he had just been handed permission to be cruel. "Is there?" Ryan replied loudly. "Because I don't see anyone important standing here." A few people nearby exchanged looks. Someone cleared their throat. No one stepped in. Steven didn't raise his voice. "I was here first." That calm response annoyed Ryan more than anger ever could. "You hear that?" Ryan said to the people around him. "This guy thinks he matters." Laughter bubbled up from a couple of bystanders. Nervous, uncomfortable laughter. The kind that tried to avoid becoming a target. Ryan leaned in closer, invading Steven's personal space. He smelled of alcohol and arrogance. "Look at you," he sneered. "Standing here like you belong. This place is packed, Grandpa, move. Stephen didn't move. That was the moment things shifted. Ryan's smile faded, replaced by irritation. He wasn't used to resistance, especially not quiet resistance. Most people either snapped back or backed down. Stephen did neither. You deaf? Ryan snapped. Or just stupid? Stephen met his eyes. Neither. The word landed harder than an insult. People started paying attention now. Phones came out. A small circle formed, drawn by tension rather than curiosity. Everyone sensed something was coming. Ryan felt the eyes on him. And instead of backing down, he leaned into it. This is what's wrong with people like you, he said loudly. You think politeness means strength. Stephen replied calmly. No, control does. Ryan laughed, sharp and mocking. Control. He shook his head. You wouldn't last 5 seconds if this got real. A woman nearby whispered, someone should stop this. But no one did, because bullies thrive on silence. Ryan stepped even closer, chest nearly touching Stephen's. Guys like you stay quiet. Stephen's expression didn't change, and that terrified Ryan, though he didn't realize it yet. Back up, someone finally said from the crowd. Ryan turned furious. Mind your business, and he looked back at Stephen. This is your last warning. He said, voice low and threatening. Step aside. Stephen's answer was simple. No. That single word shattered Ryan's fragile sense of dominance. The plaza went quiet, and in that quiet, Ryan made the worst decision of his life, one driven by ego, insecurity, and the need to feel powerful in front of strangers. The slap came seconds later, but long before his hand moved, long before the crowd gasped. The consequences were already set in motion. The slap didn't come from rage. It came from insecurity. Ryan's hand moved before his brain could catch up. Fast, reckless, fueled by the unbearable feeling that he was losing control. The sharp crack of skin against skin echoed through the plaza, louder than it had any right to be. Conversations stopped. Music died. Even the city itself seemed to pause. Steven Seagal's head turned slightly with the impact. For a split second, everyone waited for an explosion. A punch. A shove. A scream. Anything. But Stephen didn't react the way the crowd expected. He didn't strike back. Didn't stagger. Didn't raise his voice. He simply stood there. The bully's grin widened. Mistaking restraint for surrender. That's what I thought, Ryan said loudly. That's how respect works. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. A woman covered her mouth. Someone shouted, Hey, that's assault. Ryan turned toward the voice. You see him complaining, he barked. No, then stay out of it. Stephen slowly lifted his hand to his cheek. Not in pain, but in acknowledgement. He exhaled once, deeply as if grounding himself. Then he looked directly at Ryan. You shouldn't do that, Stephen said calmly. The words were quiet, but they carried a weight that made the air feel heavier. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was a statement. Final, measured, undeniable. Ryan laughed. Or what? You gonna lecture me to death? A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't funny anymore. This was crossing a line. Someone pulled out their phone and started dialing. Another voice said, The police are coming. Ryan waved them off. Good, let them come. He turned back to Stephen, eyes burning with a need to prove something. You think they'll believe you over me? Stephen didn't answer. That silence again. It was starting to bother people now, because silence like that didn't belong to victims. It belonged to men who had already decided how things would end. Ryan stepped back, pacing like a predator, feeding off the attention. You know what your problem is? He said loudly. You think being calm makes you superior, Stephen replied evenly. Number, I think hurting others makes you small. That did it. Ryan lunged forward, grabbing Stephen by the collar. Say that again. The crowd erupted. Let him go. Back off. Someone stop him. Stephen looked down at the hand gripping his shirt. For the first time, there was a change, not in his face, but in his posture. His shoulders settled. His feet adjusted, barely noticeable but deliberate. The kind of movement that came from years of discipline. Ryan felt it. He didn't understand why, but suddenly the situation didn't feel as safe as it had seconds ago. "Get your hands off me," Stephen said, voice still calm. But colder now. Ryan hesitated. That hesitation saved him from something worse. He shoved Stephen back instead and laughed, trying to regain control. "See?" Still standing, Stephen steadied himself, straightened his clothes and looked around at the crowd. "Everyone saw that," he said quietly. Ryan scoffed. "Yeah, they saw you get slapped." Stephen met his eyes again. "They saw who you are." That sentence hit harder than any punch, people murmured. Heads nodded. The mood shifted from entertainment to judgment. Ryan could feel it slipping away. The power, the attention, the control. And bullies don't handle that well. "So what now?" Ryan snapped. "You gonna cry? Run." Stephen reached into his pocket. The crowd tensed. Ryan smirked. "What? You got a weapon now?" Stephen shook his head. Number. He pulled out his phone. That was it. No threats. No drama. Just one call. Ryan laughed, relieved. "Calling your kid, your lawyer?" Stephen looked at the screen, then back at Ryan. "My son," he said calmly, "needs to know I was assaulted." The laughter around them faded. Something in Stephen's tone made the air go cold. Ryan scoffed, but it sounded forced now. "Good luck with that." Stephen lifted the phone to his ear. And somewhere far away, a line connected, one that would turn this public humiliation into a public reckoning. The plaza was still buzzing when the sound of engines cut through the noise. Low-controlled official. Heads turned toward the street. 3 black SUVs rolled in and stopped with military precision. Not crooked, not rushed, perfectly aligned. The kind of arrival that didn't ask for attention, yet demanded it. The crowd fell silent. Doors opened. Men and women stepped out in dark suits, earpieces visible, eyes scanning everything. Their movements were sharp, disciplined, purposeful. This wasn't local police. This wasn't security hired for show. This was federal. Ryan's smirk wavered. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Steven Seagal lowered his phone and slipped it back into his pocket. His expression hadn't changed. Not when he was slapped, not when he was grabbed, and not now. One of the agents approached him immediately. "Mr. Seagal," the agent said respectfully, voice firm. "Sir, are you injured?" That was the moment the crowd gasped. Not because of the words, because of the tone. This wasn't how people spoke to victims. This was how they spoke to someone important. Ryan laughed nervously. "Wait, this is about him?" He pointed at Stephen. "You've got to be kidding me." The agent ignored Ryan completely. "We received a report of an assault," the agent continued. "Can you confirm?" Stephen nodded once. "Yes." The agent turned slowly toward Ryan, and everything changed. "Sir," the agent said, voice flat, "step away from Mr. Seagal now." Ryan's chest tightened. "Hold on, this is a misunderstanding." Another agent moved closer, blocking Ryan's exit path. "Hands where we can see them." The plaza felt smaller, tighter, like the air itself had been sealed. Ryan tried to laugh it off. "You guys are acting like he's somebody special." The first agent looked at him, unimpressed. "He is." Ryan frowned. "Who is he then?" The agent didn't raise his voice, didn't posture. He simply stated the truth. "This is Steven Seagal. His son is the director of Homeland Security." The words landed like a dropped weight. People froze. Phones shook in hands. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Homeland Security? Director? Oh my God." Ryan's face drained of color. "That's not funny," he said weakly. "You can't just say something like that." The agent met his eyes. "Sir, I wouldn't joke about my job." Another agent spoke into his earpiece. "We have visual confirmation." Ryan took a step back. "I didn't know who he was." Stephen finally spoke. "You didn't need to." The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. The crowd felt them. Ryan swallowed hard. "Look, if I'd known." Stephen cut him off, calm but unyielding. "That's the point." Ryan's voice cracked. It was just a slap. The agent stepped forward. "Assault in public, multiple witnesses, recorded evidence." Ryan turned toward the crowd, suddenly desperate. "You're all recording, right?" You saw him mouth off. No one spoke. Not one person defended him, because they had seen the truth from the start. Stephen looked around at the onlookers. "I didn't raise my voice," he said. "I didn't touch him." The agent nodded. "That aligns with witness accounts." Ryan's legs trembled. "This is insane," he whispered. "Over nothing." Stephen's eyes met his, steady and unblinking. "Respect is never nothing." One agent gently but firmly took Ryan's arm. "Sir, you're being detained." Ryan's voice rose in panic. "You can't do this. I've got a job. A life." Stephen didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply watched. "Next time," Stephen said quietly, "keep your hands to yourself." As Ryan was led away, the crowd parted. No cheers. No applause. Just silence, because everyone there understood the same thing now. This wasn't about power being revealed. It was about power never needing to announce itself. Ryan's knees buckled the moment the handcuffs clicked shut. The sound was sharp, final, metal locking around reality. The same hands that had struck another man in public now trembled, restrained at his sides. His breath came fast, shallow, like someone who had just realized the ground beneath him was gone. "This is a mistake," Ryan said again, his voice cracking. "I didn't know who he was." Seagal stood a few feet away, calm as ever. "You keep saying that," Stephen replied evenly. "And it keeps not mattering." The agents guided Ryan toward one of the black SUVs. Each step felt heavier than the last. The crowd watched in silence, phones still raised but forgotten now. No one was smiling. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was consequence. An agent stopped Ryan and turned him slightly toward Stephen. "Mr. Seagal," the agent said, "would you like to press charges?" The question hung in the air. Ryan looked up, eyes wide, fear written across his face. This was the moment he had been dreading. The moment where his fate rested in the hands of the man he had humiliated. Stephen didn't rush his answer. He looked at Ryan. Really looked at him. "I'm not doing this out of revenge," Stephen said slowly. "I'm doing this so you learn." Ryan swallowed hard. "Please," he whispered. "I'll apologize. I'll say it on camera." Stephen shook his head. "Apologies made under pressure aren't apologies. They're survival." The agent nodded, understanding. "Charges will proceed," the agent said. Ryan's shoulders collapsed. As he was escorted away, one of the agents turned to the crowd. "This area is secured. Please disperse." People slowly backed away, still processing what they had just witnessed. Some shook their heads. Others looked down, ashamed that they hadn't stepped in sooner. A young man approached Stephen cautiously. "Sir," he said, "I'm sorry no one stopped him." Stephen placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "You learned today," he said. "That matters." Nearby, the woman who had first gasped after the slap wiped her eyes. "You handled that with so much dignity," she said. Stephen gave a small nod. Anger gives bullies what they want. One of the agents stepped closer. "Sir, your son is on the line." Stephen took the phone, listening quietly. "Yes," he said, "I'm fine." A pause. "No, I didn't touch him." Another pause. "Good, let the law handle it." He ended the call and slipped the phone away. The SUVs pulled off, carrying Ryan with them. The plaza slowly returned to life. But something had changed. People weren't just walking anymore. Stephen turned to leave. A man called out, "Sir, thank you." Stephen stopped, turned back slightly. "For what?" "For showing us that strength doesn't have to be violent." Stephen nodded once as he walked away. A street musician began to play again. Softly at first, then stronger. The sound filled the space Ryan's shouting once occupied. Stephen paused near the edge of the plaza, looking back one last time. "You never know who someone is," he said to no one in particular, "so treat everyone like they matter." Then he walked on, not as a hero, not as a victim, but as a man who let justice speak louder than his fists. By the time the plaza returned to its normal rhythm, the story had already begun spreading. Clips were being uploaded, messages were being shared. People who had witnessed the incident replayed it in their minds. Not the slap, not the shouting, but the silence that followed. The calm, the restraint, the way one man refused to let hatred or ego decide his actions. Steven Seagal disappeared into the crowd, unnoticed again. And that was the lesson. Power doesn't need a spotlight. Later that evening, people talked about what they would have done differently. Some admitted they should have spoken up sooner. Others realized how easily they had mistaken confidence for dominance and quiet for weakness. Because that's how bullies survive. They rely on assumptions. They rely on the belief that the loudest voice is the strongest one. But what happened that day exposed a deeper truth. The bully didn't lose because he slapped the wrong man. He lost because he believed violence made him powerful. Steven never raised a fist, never threatened, never even raised his voice. Yet he walked away with his dignity intact, and the law on his side. That's real strength. Respect isn't something you demand, it's something you practice. Every insult Ryan threw came from insecurity. Every shove was proof that he needed the crowd's approval to feel big. And when that approval disappeared, so did his confidence. Steven needed none of that. He understood something most people learn too late. You don't need to prove who you are when you already know. Age doesn't erase strength. Silence doesn't equal fear. And calm isn't weakness. It's mastery. The incident wasn't about Homeland security. That was just the reveal. The real message came long before the SUVs arrived. It came when Steven chose restraint over revenge, when he chose accountability over anger, when he let consequences speak louder than his ego. And that lesson matters, because this world is full of moments just like that plaza. Small confrontations, public spaces, strangers making snap judgments. Every day, someone is tested. Every day, someone chooses between reacting and responding, between escalating and ending the cycle, between becoming the bully or becoming better. What happened to Ryan wasn't cruelty, it was accountability. And accountability is the foundation of respect. If there's one thing to take from this story, it's this: treat people like they matter, even when you think they don't. Especially then, because you never know who someone is connected to. But more importantly, you never know what kind of strength they carry quietly. Type respect if you believe strength comes with self-control. Type no bullying if you believe dignity should never be tested, and comment where you're watching from. Your voice matters, Faye. This wasn't a story about power. It was a reminder that true power never needs to announce itself.